everyone, welcome to this session. So let's understand how to handle user input in JavaScript. So there are different ways of doing it. So let's start with prompt method. So I'll declare a variable here and then I'll use prompt method of window object. So window.prompt, and then you can give any prompt that you want. So here I'll give enter your name and then let's just save this. We have the prompt here. So if I type in anything here, we are not doing anything with the value right now. So nothing will happen if I click on OK. So let's just log this value, log and then username and save this. Now let's just give the prompt a value and then click on OK. So you see the value here, right? And you can also add something else to it, for example, and then save this. And if you type in anything here now, so you see the value, right? So this is how you can accept user input using prompt method. Now let's just see how we can do it with HTML elements. So I'll remove this, otherwise this prompt will keep on coming. And let's just go to the HTML file and I'll create some HTML elements over here. So I'll just go ahead and first create a label, enter your name, and let's save this. So we have the label now. Now let's create an input box and let's keep the type as text itself. Let's just give an ID to it and then save this. So now we have the input box, and also let's create a button here, submit, and let's give this button an ID and save this. So I want that when the user enters a value over here and then clicks on submit, I want to display that value over here. I want to log that value. So what am I doing over here? I'm taking the value entered into the HTML element and then taking it to the JavaScript file and then logging that value. Okay, so let's just go ahead and see how we can do that. So first of all, we'll take the button ID, okay, because everything is happening on the button click. So when the user will click on the button, that is when we'll see, okay, what is the value that has been entered by the user, and we'll take that value and then print it. So I'm taking the button ID here and I'll go to the JavaScript and I'll write something like this, document.getElement by ID. And what's the button ID? This is the button ID. And then I'll add an event listener. So add event listener, and what is the event that will happen? Click event, right? User is going to click on the button, and when the click happens, I want to call a function. Either you can write the function here itself or you can just call the function, and I'll give a random name to the function. So for example, I have given this name. So let's just copy this and write the function. So the simple syntax for writing a function is with this keyword. You need to define this keyword function and then give a function name. This can be anything that you want to give, but this has to be there, function keyword. And then after that, put curly braces, and inside that you can write your logic. Now if you see this line, I have taken the button ID and I am adding an event listener, which is click. So when somebody clicks on the button, what do I want? I want the value of this input box, whatever has been entered over here. So for that, we would have to do something like this, document.getElement by ID. And what is the ID of this input box? So let's go back to the HTML, and this is the input box. This is the input box, okay, and the ID is this. So let's copy the ID. We'll go back and take the ID and then dot value. We need the value, right? Now we have the value, but we have to receive the value somewhere, right? Because we need to print it. So let's just say let username is equals to this, and then I'm going ahead and logging this value, and then let's just save this and try this out. So if I typed in Alice and if I click on submit, you see the value, right? So here I have entered a value in my HTML element, and then on the click of an HTML element, I am taking that value in my JavaScript and then logging that down. So all of these are HTML elements, right? So when somebody is entering a value into one HTML element and then clicking on to another HTML element, I'm taking that value by identifying the event, using the ID, and then taking that value and then receiving that in JavaScript and then logging that value. That's all I'm doing here, right? Similarly, we can include other elements. So let's just go back to the HTML file and I'll create another label for age, and then also let's use a break statement so that it will be in a different line. Now let's include an input here, and here I'll keep the type as number, name as age, and let's just give this an ID. Now let's take this ID and go back to the JavaScript file, and similarly the way I've received the username, I'll receive the age as well. So document.getElement by ID, and what's the ID? This is the ID dot value. So whatever user enters into that, okay, and let me save this and I'll also log this one as well. And what's the variable name that where we are receiving it? Over here. So let's just save this, and then now let's try it out. So Alice, and then in the age, if I give like 21 and click on submit, you can see the name and also the age. Let's log one more thing. I'll type in hi. We'll use the dollar symbol and then curly braces, and I want to take the username, your age is, and then dollar sign, curly brackets, and age. And if I save this, let me try it again, Alice 22, and submit. So you see I'm getting this message, hi Alice, your age is 22. So that this is how you can receive elements from HTML, okay, and then use it in your JavaScript for any logic that you want to implement. But the way we are receiving the value, right, by using dot value, this can be different if the input type is different. So the here the input type is still an input box, right? Here also it's an input box, but what if it's some different kind of input type, right? So let me go back to HTML and create another one. Here I'll create another label and I'm going to give it a name as subscribed, and I'll add a question mark here, and let me save this, and we'll also add a break statement over here. Now let's create the checkbox and let's add another break statement over here. We'll also give an ID to this so that we can access this in JavaScript file. So I'll give the ID as subscription ID or something like that, and I'll copy this ID. We'll go back to the JavaScript file, and here let is subscribed. We'll create our variable and then document dot get element by ID. What's the ID? It's this one. Here we are not going to do dot value because it's a checkbox, right? So it doesn't contain like value, right? It will just either be true or false. So for this we use something like this, checked. Okay, checked. Let's log this value as well, and then also append it over here. Your subscriptions status is, and then here we can append the value $sign and curly brackets, and what's the variable where we have the result? It is this one. And that's it, and let's save this and then try it out. So here I'll give this, I'll give an age and then subscribed, and if I click on submit, you can see the values, right? Alice 34 true, because we have logged all these three values, and then we are seeing the final console log that we have put. Hi Alice, your age is 34, your subscription status is true. So depending on what kind of input it is, this format can change, right? So it is not always going to be dot value. All right, and over here you can also do some basic input validation. So for example, let me comment all these lines. So I'll use Control K C. This is a shortcut in your VS Code to comment. And then here I'll put a validation. So if username is equals to blank, if there is no username, then show a message. Please enter username. And then in else, you can just log the username and then save this. So if I just click on submit without entering the username, let's see what happens. See, it is giving me this validation. Please enter username. But if I enter a username and after that, if I click on submit, I'll see the username. So for any logic that you write, correct, you can put a validation. So for example, if I now take all of this and let me just cut this and paste it over here, right? Because that is the validation. And here, if I save this, if I enter a name, some age, then I see everything, right? But let's say if I remove the name and if I submit, I'll see this message, right? If I refresh, if there is no name and if I click on submit, then I'll see this message. And also you can put like, combined validation. So for example, if username is null and see these are the places where you can use logical operators, right? If age is also is equals to blank, then only this validation will be displayed, because I've used and, right? So it will check for both the cases, right? If this is blank and this is blank, then only it will show this message. So for example, now if I just click on subscribed and click on submit, it will give me this message, please enter username and age, right? But if I enter both of these and click on submit, it will show me the value because it will go in the else part. So these are few ways how you can handle user input in JavaScript. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next one.